Welcome, everybody, to Night of the Nerdy Laser podcast. This is a very special edition interview. I am Richard Yule, alongside, as always, with Mr. Jeffrey.
Hello.
And today we are joined by Brad Henderson from TerraVision. Welcome, Brad. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So Jeff's, I guess, been following you for a while and conversing, and but I mean, we've been following TerraVision, this kind of ride that y'all have been on the past few years. It's pretty crazy. Just explain to people what TerraVision is and what y'all set out to do.
Yeah, I mean, my prior history in home video is I was acquisitions and producer at Vinegar Syndrome for a number of years. And then, I met Ryan Grayface, who owns TerraVision and Grayface Records. I met him by accident in October of 2020. My wife and I were vacationing in Savannah, Georgia, because it was the pandemic year and it was really rough. Obviously we're all hunkered down and we wanted to go someplace, just to get out. And Savannah had, some really strict guidelines, for the community. So, it was, you couldn't, like all businesses, you had to wear a mask. So it seemed kind of safe. So we went, and she knows I love record stores. And I already had, some TerraVision records. And I had no idea that they were based in Savannah. And I went into Grayface Records and I was just looking around and this guy comes up to me and, we were just talking. I had a Spookies record and he was like, "You like Spookies?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I'm the one that found the rights to this movie for Vinegar Syndrome when I was working there." And he's like, "No shit." And so we just started talking and he told me about his museum there and, his horror shops and pinball arcade stuff, everything that Ryan has on the side. And we just kind of, kept in touch, conversed a little bit, and we had some ideas. And, I was just talking about certain soundtracks. And we acquired a couple soundtracks together, like literally like maybe a month after. And he was like, "What about video rights? What if I wanted to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, that's possible." Vinegar Syndrome at the time was not interested in shot on video stuff. So unfortunately it was already acquired. But we started talking more about these like weird films that we do love. And basically a year after we met in October of 2021, our first release was WNF Halloween. And then, we just started collaborating more. I left Vinegar Syndrome and started, doing that full time with TerraVision. And Ryan and I have a great relationship. We give each other our space and, we can kind of both do what we want. And we love the same things and have the same like drive, and we have the same work ethic, which really, really works. Cause Ryan and I basically work from the time that we get up to the time we go to bed, so we're very simpatico like that. As far as like in tune. And it's really nice to actually have that, because sometimes I get really excited like at 9 p.m., but I don't know who to tell because, I don't want to bother anybody, but I can bother Ryan because he gets excited too because he's up. I
have that issue too. I just have to contact Jeff.
You're lucky. I'm 2 hours different time zones, so I'm always up when you're still up. But
so oh, sorry, my dogs are barking in the background.
That's all right.
So we collaborated, and then we just started acquiring things. And once I stepped out of VS, which I was there for, because TerraVision was a partner label for 6 releases at OCN Vinegar Syndrome, and and then I parted ways there. Because TerraVision, with kind of what we wanted to do there and kind of the mission, was to kind of recreate what we felt in the video store era, because we both, grew up in a video store. We actually opened a video store together in Chicago. Yeah, that was a special time for me because I learned a lot about movies, and I was fortunate to have, about 4 rental stores near me here in Florida when I was little. And then when we would visit in Ohio, there was a couple video stores that I frequented quite a bit because we would spend summers, about 3 to 4 weeks in summers there when I was, very young, until I was, 16, 17 years old. And yeah, I love that feeling, and I love kind of the ability to go in and rent anything, whether it's an art house film, a comedy, erotic thriller, a horror film, shot on video, whatever it is. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with the label, is we wanted to kind of have it like everything. There was nothing really off limits. And we also then on the side created Great Face Films, which we decided, internally that putting, maybe a comedy or a kids movie might not be the best idea to put it on TerraVision. So we created Great Face Films because we had a lot of films that just didn't fit the TerraVision mold with shot on video stuff and whatnot. So we created that, and yeah, both are coming along nicely. And it was a little rough to start, just like any business, I guess. But yeah, we're about 50 releases deep now, and we got about another 300 that we're working on and on the docket. So it's, we got a lot of plans and a lot of things in motion.
Well, I appreciate y'all because I had never heard of Killing Spree. And I got it through you guys, and it's amazing. I really love that movie. Like, I mean, obviously it's a, it's shot on video, and there's no budget, and some of the things are a little ridiculous, but like it has a solid story. It's really, really good. I really urge everybody to try to watch that movie.
Just a quick correction. It's not shot on video. It's shot on 16 millimeter.
Oh, shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah, it has that aesthetic because it was edited on tape. The reels have been lost for a number of years, so Tim only has like I think a 1-inch beta tape or something, and that's what we did the transfer on. But it shares that same aesthetic, but it is known as a shot on video movie, but it's not. I mean, we do have those like video violence and captives and Copperhead and Linnea Quigley's horror workout, which we were talking about before the show. Shot on video was always something that I really loved growing up, and so did Ryan, just because it kind of gives more of like a DIY, make this with your friends on a weekend type vibe. And I always felt watching, when I realized what shot on video was as a teenager, I felt like I was there, and I felt like part of it when I'm watching it. Like, oh, these are just like some probably young ass kids making a movie with, on video to save some money. And it really blossomed from there. I know it's like a thing that people kind of turn their nose up with, but we both love a lot of shot on video, and a big, probably 30% of our catalog is shot on video. So,
well, I didn't even know really the term or like that these movies existed until you guys put them out there. So I appreciate that.
yeah, it's one of those things where they were popular at the time at the video store when they came out, because video stores are clamoring for content around that time. But through the transition of through distribution, I mean, a lot of these were self-made by these people, so the rights went back to them. They didn't belong to a studio or something to keep pumping them out, or they weren't able to go through drive-ins like the 80s and the 70s and 80s films were, because they would just be in the theater for an entire year, like going through drive-ins and whatnot. So really the only legacy in life that these things had was in the video store for maybe 10 years that the tape lasted that long through numerous rentals. And then after that, they just disappeared until, weirdos like us started putting stuff out on DVD, maybe in the early 2000s, like Ron Bonk at Sub Rose Entertainment started doing stuff, alternative cinema and Camp Motion Pictures. Razzo started doing DVDs of that stuff and putting the films back out there. So it was growing up and seeing those back on video or DVD at the time. That was like a kind of a revelation, because some of these things were hard to find, and they weren't expensive at the time. Tapes were fairly cheap when I was, a young teenager. I was buying tapes for $0.25. Now some of these tapes are worth $400 or $500, which is, people are stupid. That's ridiculous. But I mean, if they want to buy it from me, I'm not going to complain. There's plenty of tapes for hundreds of dollars. I just laugh when I get the money, and then I send a movie out on VHS in the mail. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, that's that whole era and that time was special for us, and it's kind of surreal to be able to give these films a new life and the longevity of them. Because we don't want them to disappear. And there's a lot of films that we love that that will eventually disappear because maybe they're not that well known, or people don't want to give them a chance. Because I do think there is a cycle a lot with people in general, is that they want to watch stuff that they're familiar with, so they rewatch things pretty consistently. It's not too often that people branch out on something that they're not familiar with, unless they hear that maybe it went like viral or something, or there's a lot of talk about it online, and then people will give it a shot, and then that movie will eventually get in to like the lexicon of horror fans talking about it. But I mean, there's tens of thousands of films, more than that, 20. I mean, there's so many. I mean, 1 million films that are just existing that aren't actually known or talking about because of people not talking about them. And that's something that we've kind of used ourselves at TerraVision to kind of give a voice to these films that are kind of lost and forgotten about. Srigala that we did was one of them. That movie never came outside of Indonesia, even on VHS, nowhere outside. It wasn't even on VHS in Indonesia. It only played in theaters on cable. And that was a film that we acquired, and we did a new restoration. We literally had the first legitimate home video release in the entire world on that movie. Awesome. So that was, that's a huge accomplishment, because that film probably just would have died. It was dead. And it took me like 7 years to get that movie out, just because I had a bootleg of it when I was younger, and I didn't have subtitles with it, and I just always kind of liked the look of it. And eventually, probably about 10 years ago, I was able to get a subtitled file, and I watched it, and I was like, this is fucking great, and that was like a big mission. Satanic was another one that we did. That's 1968. And the only home video release it ever had was on DVD in Italy, and it wasn't even English friendly. And the only time it played here in the U.S., I think, was on cable, dub version on cable. Hey, stop it. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing for us, is trying to bring these films that are lost, forgotten about, and stuff that we really love and we kind of grew up with, and giving it a new audience and seeing if people find it as good as we do.
You guys, like you said, you have a wide variety of stuff out there, ranging from SOV to bigger titles and stuff like that. One title that you guys put out that I was pretty excited about was Dead Air.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Movie that no one ever talks about, but thank you.
Yeah, I don't know why more people don't talk about that movie. It's more fun than it needs to be, but I don't know. I can't remember where I first saw it, and I saw like a used DVD somewhere at one point, and that's all I saw. I didn't pick it up at the time, so I was kind of sad. And then I remember you guys announcing that came out. So when I got to get my hands on a Blu-ray copy of that, like I was over the moon. But and other stuff like is it Malum?
Yeah.
Malum. And that one you guys were actually able to get out into like a big store too, right? I think I saw that.
Our first Walmart release.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember when you guys had posted that. I went to our store that gets terrible selection of stuff, but for some reason got that one, and I was like, we did it. We made it. So it's always fun to go find that stuff in person. You know what I mean? So
who would have thought like Walmart? Who would have thought that like Walmart is like holding on to the physical. Like there are in the mainstream big box stores, they're the ones that are keeping us alive, and giving companies like yours, chances in their store and stuff. So I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Walmart has been very cool about trying to work with getting more like independent stuff out. I mean, I know we're talking about a huge corporation that doesn't, need any more money. But I do appreciate that their home video side is willing to take risks. And I think that's important no matter how big you are, because they shouldn't be doing it. They should just carry Marvel movies and their stuff that actually sells, but they're very much into packaging, and that
Very much.
I don't think a lot of people know this, but Walmart is actually kind of like the company that really pushes for alternate like versions of like artwork.
Cool.
So these steel books and glow in the dark steel books and whatnot, they're the ones that really kind of push for that. So yeah, Malum was our first one, and they were big on, they wanted it to say collector's edition, they wanted it to have a slip cover, and they wanted to make sure it had all these special features on it, which is the same, it's the same disc of the Blu-ray that's in our UHD. And then actually today, we haven't really said anything too much online, but today, it's September 10th today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frogman, the kind of single disc version of that is out in Walmart today.
Oh, awesome.
And Walmart, yeah, they put that in 2,000 stores this as of today. Yeah, so
cool. That was a movie that surprised me. Not that you guys got it, just the movie itself.
Yeah.
I thought that creature design was pretty awesome.
Yeah, creature design.
The story's fun, and I mean the cast being 3 people basically carrying a whole movie. I always like the the micro cast kind of stuff. It always brings a little bit of charm, I guess, to stuff, and that's one of the ones that falls in there. One other person that you guys have worked with a few times now is Chris LaMartina, right?
Yeah, Chris is a good friend. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you guys have put out WNUF. You're doing Out There Halloween Mega Tape, which is WNUF 2, and you guys also put out President's Day, his release of President's Day, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
That was
and What Happens Next Will Scare You.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, for LaMartina films, and then also him and Melissa have done some extras for us. They did Cannibal Campout has they do like the Shocktail Hour, and they did that for that release, and I think they did it for Hollow Gate as well. So yeah, we collaborate. Chris does a lot of like our kind of commercials as well, and edits like little things for us, and helps us with like the campaigns. So it's been Chris is a great guy, good friend, great collaborator, and like stupidly talented too, like ridiculously talented.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that you guys are able to work together.
I love WNUF. That movie is. I love that, and now it just left my head. The Ghost Watch. I love Ghost Watch.
Oh yeah, Ghost Watch is great. Yeah. So Chris is cool. We like working with him, and hopefully that's a good future of kind of collaboration, because he kind of gets what we like, the aesthetic that we try to hold. With kind of the look and everything, which we're kind of getting back into, because I think we kind of lost touch with the look and feel of TerraVision for a little while, because we were trying to pump out so many titles, and that's when we took kind of a step back, and we're kind of getting more into that vibe, especially kind of like Return of the Living Dead 2 campaign and putting that out, and then we did of course Frogman and WNF 2. So we have some cool stuff coming up, and hopefully that does well too.
For sure.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that if you could please, it's probably not part of what you're going for, but Prayer of the Roller Boys is my favorite movie of all time, and I would like a release of that movie. I finally got Rad after all these years of wanting Rad. I just need Prayer of the Roller Boys now.
Yeah, the Roller Boys or the Roller Blade movies, I think there's 7 of them. Those movies are um, they're it's very complicated with how the rights ended up, and sadly, I don't know how many of those will actually ever see the light of day.
Uh,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think Prayer for the Roller Boys might be the 7th or 6th one in the series.
Yeah, I never even knew it was kind of connected, but then I
I mean,
found out.
they're not really. I mean, it's just
I mean,
like
it's a gang of rollerbladers. I mean, it's
yeah,
sort
yeah. I mean, Rollerblade's always been like a really like the first one. Rollerblade was always like a fun one, and yeah, I'm Rollerblade 7 or something. I always forget the names of the movies, but yeah, I
well,
think
and like,
7.
yeah, because I would. Well, for FrankenCon, we got Rhonda Shear coming in next year, and I was looking at her thing, and she's in 2 of those movies, and I'm like, that's crazy. But yeah, Prayer of the Roller Boys is just like it's my favorite like '90s. Like I remember renting it, not knowing what it was or anything, and I was a teenager when I rented it, and I've just always loved that movie. I mean, good news is I have copies, but you know, I'd rather have an official release and actually support the movie.
Yeah,
It's my
I wish something else was up. You know, someone else owned those movies, but I just yeah, I've tried for a number of years, and Rollerblade might happen, but not. I don't know if the others will.
yeah. I mean, I never thought Rad would get a release. I mean, so never know, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so when you went to go, I loved going to the video stores, and I can tell you did too. And because I had Mr. Video, I had J&J Video. When you went to your mom and pop video stores, what did you like? Did you like the tapes behind it or the little tag on the front?
Well, down here in Florida, most of the tapes were behind uh the covers, but in Ohio, there was 2 video stores that we frequented quite a lot, and I think really only them because they were huge. Was a company, a business called Video Time, and they had like they had little tags.
Yeah,
You would put a nail in the wood, and you would just
yeah,
take the tag up to the counter. So yeah, I had both. You know, I like the tapes more because I got to hold them in the store. You know, it just felt special rather than a little tag. But
yeah.
I mean, as long as I
Um,
got the movie, the only issue sometimes with the tags is that they would either the tags would be misplaced and you couldn't find the movie, or they wouldn't have the movie when you got the tag. It wasn't like I guess like in the section it was supposed to be. So I got burned a couple times and always frustrated me.
I had a friend that would take them, like take the tag,
That is
and then
terrible.
like so then you don't know, and I
Are
always
you
yelled
still
at
friends with this person?
him. No,
Good, good. That's terrible. They ruined a little kid's life by not being able to rent like
teenagers.
From Beyond or something.
um, yeah, my I guess the grungiest thing I got in the video store was Full Moon stuff. That's where my love really, like, I just these crazy covers and stuff. I don't remember any of the like shot on video stuff, but Full Moon was definitely my jam.
Yeah, I had that. I mean, my we had like the video store in Ohio was pretty fucked up. Because they like blended a lot of stuff together that shouldn't have been blended together because I don't know if they knew like the content that was on the movies. So I didn't really have like anybody watching over me and like watching what I was renting. And there was like a couple times where I rented some shit that I shouldn't have seen. It wasn't like porn or anything, but it's pretty close to it. Like softcore, like thrillers and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget. I rented this movie one time, and I watched it again, like probably like maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. But I rented this movie called Midnight Intruders, and I thought it was like this, maybe a slasher film because the front cover had this like masked dude coming in from a window, like had a ladder up on a wall and coming through, and he had a knife, and the knife was really big on the cover. And I rented it, and it is literally like a rape like softcore movie, and there's not really any like slashers, and it's not even a horror film. It's one of like Gary Graver's movies, and like I probably saw that when I was like 10, and I'm just like sitting there like in the living room watching it, and I'm like, oh man, like what the fuck is this? It like never left me because it really kind of left its imprint on me. And then a few years ago I rewatched it, and it wasn't as bad as it was when I was younger, but I was like, fuck, dude, that's crazy to watch this shit. But yeah, I mean, my parents and my grandmother, they didn't really care what I would watch, so I didn't have anybody telling me yes or no. When I would watch movies with my mom or my grandma, they would tell me to close my eyes if there was a sex scene or something, but that's pretty much it. As far as like content, but the murder and mayhem, no one ever gave a shit about.
Always glad to hear somebody else's grandma indulging their video experience. That's how I saw a lot of stuff. Was my grandma would take me to the store every couple days and go grab a handful of stuff and watch it. And I remember getting Bordello of Blood on VHS. And watching that, and then my mom gets off work, comes home, sees me watching that. She's like, "What are you doing, letting him watch that?" And she's like, "It's a movie. Who cares?" Like,
yeah.
But no, that's how I guess a lot of us became fans of movies like we are today. Like if we didn't have access to go in to get stuff like that and just testing different things and seeing like, okay, this cover works, I like this, or this looks interesting, or the little synopsis on the back looks interesting, or all that. I mean, not only do I love like horror and genre stuff, but I'm like a big action movie guy. So I mean, all the action movies back then, like, that's how you experience those. Like I obviously couldn't go to the theater, so it was a lot of VHS, so all the canon stuff.
I grew up on a lot. I mean, a lot of that stuff. My grandmother, when we like I said, we would spend summers in Ohio, and my family was big gamblers, and my grandmother wasn't. So I'd be left with my grandmother, and we would go to Video Time, the video store, probably about maybe every 2 to 3 days, and rent like 3 to 4 movies. And she would rent like erotic thrillers and stuff like that, and I would watch those with her. My grandma actually passed away on Saturday, by the way.
Sorry to hear
and I was like,
sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it was kind of one of those things that we knew was coming.
Yeah.
But I at that, I was pretty sad over the weekend, and I really remembered kind of like, going to the video store. She would always laugh because I would take a right immediately because the horror wall was like all the way to the right, and I would rent like 2 things. She would grab like a comedy or something, and like fucking Body Chemistry or something. And we would like go to McDonald's. She'd grab me like a Happy Meal or something, and we would just sit in her living room and watch just one movie right after the other. And I got basically exposed to so much, like I said, erotic thrillers and action films, and she loves Steven Seagal, so like
yes,
that was the first time I ever saw like Marked for Death. But it was like I'll never forget like renting Skyscraper, because Anna Nicole Smith's boobs were on the front, and I was like, grab that tag, and I was like, oh my god, this movie's gonna be great. I was exposed to a lot. So thankfully I grew up in a period in a time where I did have video stores that were mom and pop. Plus we had a Blockbuster. It was literally the closest video store to us. It was like 3 minutes down the road. And that's where I ended up working. That was my first job, was working in a video store. It was literally probably the best job I still ever, like, even though I love what I do now and I literally have zero complaints, I do, oh my God, working at a video store is literally the best job I've ever had. And I really do love TerraVision, but there was something about, maybe because I was just a giant fucking nerd and, I loved movies and I was able to talk about movies because, like, I grew up in a town where, I don't know, it's very sporty and kind of redneckish. So like a lot of my friends, I had a lot of friends, but they really weren't into like movies. And working at the video store, people would come in and be like, "What do you recommend?" It's immediately like most, like 50% of people would say, that's it, or they would say, "Hey, have you seen this?" And then you can give your opinion and maybe talk them out of renting that, and maybe something else. And then you like develop a bond with customers and they come in and they're like, "Hey, you recommended that movie, like what else you got?" You're like, that was like a good fucking feeling.
Right.
And working on weekends and stuff and like, giving free rentals to like girls and shit. It
All
was
the
a
good old
good,
days.
yeah, it was just a good time, man. And I really do miss it and love it. And I thankfully I worked at a franchise Blockbuster, not a corporate store. So like our rules were very, very different. And the movie selection was very different because we didn't have those like edited movies, like
Oh yeah.
edit. And we were allowed to have, we didn't have like porn or anything because it was illegal in the county that I lived in. But we did have like Lord of the G Strings and, Girls Gone Wild and stuff like that, which,
Oh yeah.
a lot of dudes would come in and rent at night, like 11 o'clock at night. They would run in and get Girls Gone Wild tape. I'm like, dude, the internet's just so much better than this. I was like, these things are kind of gross and stupid. I was like, and then people would ask you about them. And we always had like these disinfectant wipes when they would bring them in. We would just grab them and we would wipe them down because we knew, like, what are you renting them for? You're renting them to fucking jerk off, and you probably like. I'm a dude, so you jerk off and then you hit the eject button and you put the tape back in the thing.
Yeah.
And it's probably what you do. Like, I'm not stupid. We would sanitize the shit out of those and they would keep them. But man, you couldn't keep them on the shelf. Oh my gosh. And we had
Girls
some other stuff.
Girls Gone Wild is a weird part of American history to me. Like,
And it's so offensive. Like it's so gross and weird. And like even at the time, I was like, you just like have a camera and you're like, I mean, I think that guy ended up getting sued, but it was crazy because I remember staying up late, like on a weekend, and the infomercials.
Oh,
Like on E! and USA Network, they would have infomercials for Girls Gone Wild. And I try to like think back and I'm like, that's fucking crazy.
yeah.
Like that's fucking nuts. Can you imagine like today having some type of advertisement like that?
Like, a half-hour advertisement.
I mean, there was underage girls in those tapes. Like that's crazy. Like that's fucking crazy. And like I just remember like even thinking, and I definitely watched like one or two because I was like, what is this about? But I was just like, I'm just gonna sneak into my parents' room and nab their porno tapes and watch those instead because those are much better. Like, I want to see Asia Carrera. I don't want to see like some fucking, girl like flip her tongue for 5 seconds and then move on. Like, no, I want to see Asia Carrera like seduce somebody.
The whole scene.
I grew up with Emmanuel, so
I mean, and a lot of those spinoffs were coming out around the time, and we had a lot of those, and they were very different from the earlier 70s and those types of films, but they continue to make them, and they were just like softcore. I'll never forget. I got one because I saw like the first like 3 Emmanuel films when I was younger, probably like 18, 19 years old. And I'll never forget. I can't think of the name of the one. I'd have to look it up. But we got one in, and it was like Emmanuel in like Sweden or something. It's not the actual title. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is like, I know that they're continuing to make these movies. And I put it in, and it's not like an Emmanuel movie. Like, it's just straight up like, guy wearing a sock over his cock and like acting like he's having sex with the girl. And I was like, man, this is stupid. And yeah, it's like I'll never forget. I mean, also like we would, when the movies would come in, we had a list, and it would have the rating, and it was the YRV stickers, youth restricted viewing. We would have, and we would have to put like fucking stickers everywhere, all over those things, and like people, parents would complain. And it's like, it's on the top shelf. If your child can reach there, they're probably old enough to watch it,
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, it was a kind of a crazy time. But I that's the whole point of all of this, is like, that's part of the video store experience I had. So,
Yeah.
Anybody could find anything that they wanted in a video store. And I love that. It wasn't like it was curated to the point where it was like, oh, they only carry like horror films or something like that. And then maybe there was a collection, because we had a movie gallery here in town, and the dude definitely knew what he was doing, because the horror section in our movie gallery like overtook like half the store.
Yeah.
And he would have new movies come in, and this is like the DVD era, but he would have like new movies on VHS, like not brand new movies. He would have old movies that he bought that he would put for like a rental. And I'll never forget like going in there and like seeing like things constantly updated and changed. And finally it was the first place that it was probably like maybe 2001, I would say. I think that's it, maybe 2001. Bruiser just came out.
Oh yeah.
And I was wanting to see it because it came out in Canada first, and like I heard these people talking about it like in magazines, and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to see this movie. Like, when is it going to actually come out here? And it did, and I watched it, and I was just like, I fucking love Bruce. It's still one of my favorite Romero movies. And I went up to the dude, and it was a VHS, and I went up to this guy, and I was like, hey man, like, can I buy this? And he was like, no, they're not for sale. They're just for rent. And I was like, we got like 3 copies. I was like, I love Romero. And I was probably like 16 at the time. And I was like, I come here and I was like, I love all your movies. I was like talking about like Curse of the Blue Lights and stuff, and like all these like really weird movies he had. And like we're talking, and he was like, you know what? You can have it.
That's awesome.
He's like $14.99. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. I love you. Like, thank you so much. And I went to that store until it went out of business. Again, probably another franchise, but he owned the franchise, and he knew that I paid attention to the horror section constantly. And this is like not the new release wall. This is like the inner circle of the older movies. And he would just constantly update it. And he was in there occasionally, but I'll never forget him selling me, a VHS of Bruiser. It was like a huge deal for me.
The craziest thing you just did was you mentioned Curse of the Blue Light. That's movie was filmed where I live.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, in Pueblo, in Colorado. So
yeah. No,
all the things to say, you mentioned that, and I was like, that's just so weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was I love that movie growing up, and I first saw it because of Movie Gallery, probably when I was, like I said, 16, 15, 16, 17 years old. And that was one of my acquisitions when I worked at Vinegar Syndrome, and I did awesome. The commentary with John, and is it John? I think so. And yeah, we did all those interviews like at the archive. And they all came in, and it was a really good time. And it was a film that I've always really, really liked because it's very ambitious and weird. And I love monster movies that don't make a whole lot of fucking sense.
Yeah.
Neon Maniacs is another one that I absolutely adore.
Neon Maniacs is great.
Yeah, anything where it's like a bunch
so much better, but it's still good.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, Neon Maniacs has a lot more going for it, but there's anytime you have like some wacky ass fucking monster movie with like practical effects, I'm just like, I'm down.
The regional ones are always great finds too. Regional monster movies like that, because they just have that unique little charm wherever you're pulling the movie from. Really,
Yeah, yeah.
I did want to say, like, you know, what you guys do at TerraVision and just like boutique labels in general do kind of provide us as like viewers and consumers that video store feel, because like without it, like, you know, we have like Amazon and like you said, they're selling Marvel or the Rock's next big movie or something like that, but you don't get to do that, and the community around all the boutique stuff feels like that video store, because somebody's like, hey, have you ever seen this? And the next guy's like, yeah, oh, I rented that on VHS. And it just has that feel and that kind of community that you wouldn't get from like shopping with Amazon or somewhere like that. So I do appreciate that you guys put that stuff out, because it lets a lot of people connect on stuff that we otherwise wouldn't. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we want to do at TerraVision, but also like a big goal is to bringing contemporary films to home video, because we live in this era where everything's just streaming and then it's gone and then no one knows how to watch it, and then fucking bootleggers make money off of it, you know? And not a lot of companies want to take chances on contemporary films, and that's something that we're trying to maybe make waves with and getting attention to films. Because I mean, we did, you know, Get My Gun and you know, Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla, and you know, even Dead Air I would consider a contemporary. Blood Car. You know, Malum was a big one, because I don't know if Malum would have had a home video release, because they just, I don't think they didn't seem very interested in it. But I knew a couple of the guys there, and they followed my career through home video a little bit, and they knew who I was, and it wasn't even on my radar really, because I didn't like The Last Shift. I didn't really care for it. So they actually approached us, and they were like, hey, we love what you do, like at BS, and like, you know, you're doing some cool stuff at TerraVision, like, would you give this a watch to see if it works? And I was like, I don't know, I don't really care for Last Shift. But I liked Malum a lot more, because the more practical effects, the devil shit that's in it, I was like, you know, the cult, and you know, that as soon as you have a cult in a movie, like I know Last Shift has that, but it was done a little bit differently in Last Shift. And I also like Jessica Sula, who's the lead actress in the movie. She kind of really nailed that role, and the whole opening. I just really liked it. Sound design's really good. Monsters are really good. And yeah, it was like, you know, this sounds interesting. And they were like, yeah, we just mastered the movie. And I was like, did you do it in 4K and like HDR? And they're like, yeah, we're working on that now. And I'm like, and that sounds like really dope to be able to do a UHD like in our first year of TerraVision.
yeah.
Just because a lot of companies still around haven't done very many UHDs at the time. So yeah, we did that, and then you know, shortly after that, we did another UHD, When the Screaming Starts, which is another contemporary film. And yeah, we just wanted to show that, you know, the contemporary films don't do that well, but there's, I mean, I say that, and Frogman sold out, so what the fuck do I know? But yeah, Frogman was a movie that I was really happy to do, because I'm really good friends with Peter Kaplowski. Him and I have been very good friends for a number of years, and I've always really liked Peter's taste. He's a programmer at Toronto International Film Festival for their midnight selection for a number of years, and he's Canadian, so he loves Canadian horror, which is usually sometimes the best horror out there is Canadian horror. And yeah, we were talking, and I saw him talking about Frogman, and I was like, that actually sounds, I love cryptids and shit like that. I was like, I'm interested in seeing that. I was like, Peter, can you hook me up? And he was like, yeah, talk to these dudes. And yeah, I talked to him. I was like, hey, we're kind of interested just to see this movie. And they sent it to me like the next day, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is fucking great. And so I sent it to Ryan, and you know, Ryan watched it, and he was like, yeah, he's like, this is fucking cool. And like literally 2 days later we signed the movie.
That's awesome.
Because I don't even they weren't even really doing a home video release. I think they did like a limited VHS, but that's pretty much it. And yeah, we had it for a bit and we were working on it, and then I was just like, how can we make a contemporary film feel more welcome in the home video industry? And I was like, why don't we just like kind of like go all out with it? Like give it a booklet, give it a box, give it like this mega like special edition. So I worked with Anthony, the director, who is a really stand-up guy, who I've always liked his shorts. So I was really excited I knew he directed Frogman because when I worked at a film festival a number of years ago, I was on the board of the Midnight Shorts, and I saw the Ballad of Squirt Reynolds, and I was like, we got to play this. And everybody's like, no, it's too weird. I'm like, you just, they're like, it's too bloody. It's too weird. It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of a musical. I was like, you literally just gave the definition of what a Midnight Short should be.
Right. Yeah.
So it ended up playing, and I think it won the audience award. And so, yeah, I've always kind of had my eye on Anthony. So when he was doing this feature, I was like, man, fucking Frogman, I really have high hopes for it. Yeah, Anthony was very good with it, and we did some fun stuff. We got these old recordings from frog sounds from like the 50s, and a couple weeks ago, Ryan, we had the music, or not the music, but we had the track. And Ryan was like, this is just a bunch of frog noises. And I was like, yeah. He was like, no, you don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. He was like, they kind of need to be edited. And I don't think we should do that. We should just put the whole thing on the CD. And I'm like, that's kind of boring. Like, I want to do track listings, And so I sit for 2 days just editing these frog sounds, and I text Ryan, and I was like, this is officially, I think, the dumbest thing I've ever done. But it turned out to be funny, and there's like 4 songs from the Frogman soundtrack on that CD, and then a bunch of frog noise. It's actually kind of interesting. I live in Florida, and it's always rainy, so we have a lot of toads and frogs, and I've identified 3 frogs since then by the hearing.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, that is the southern bullfrog, But yeah, and we did I was able to reach out to a couple writers. We did some essays on cryptids, and Anthony wrote like a foreword for it. And yeah, it just turned out to be kind of a really fun release, and we put it out. And the main thing was that the team that made it, they were just so happy with us, and that's actually really gratifying. Is that when you have filmmakers say, wow, guys, like, this is really cool,
Yeah.
You could easily just dump it on home video and that's
Yeah.
it. But we really did take our time, and like I said, contemporary films weren't doing that well. So being that we're geniuses, we're like, let's spend more money on this. But it worked. It sold out, in 9 days, which is crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's only 1,000 that we did of that limited edition, but I mean, those things are expensive to produce, and selling out in 9 days, that was kind of monumental for us,
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of gave us a little hope. And I mean, honestly, like, that's kind of the direction of some of this home video stuff, is that these limited editions are selling out first, and everybody's like letting these slipcovers sit for a while until there's a sale. And I was like, we got to kind of competition in a way. Like, we have to go with the flow of what the industry is pointing to. So yeah, we did WNF2 was a hit, and then we have 3 more that we're doing like relatively soon, and one of them is going to be probably our biggest release to date. So hopefully,
oh, heck yeah,
hopefully it does well. I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, all our marbles and money are in this movie. So if it fails, and
well, you got at least 1 copy sold with me, so
I fucking hope so, dude. It was a lot of work. We've worked on it for 2 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we acquired it then 2 years, probably even longer, maybe 2.5 years ago. And yeah, we did it took a little bit longer because I rejected the first restoration for it. I wasn't happy with how it looked, and so we redid it, and I supervised it, and then I had the director come in, and he supervised it and signed off on the restoration and the color grade, and he was very, very happy. We just spoke last night because we're trying to do something special, and yeah, I really hope, because it's a big movie for us, and I think we'll surprise a lot of people with it. So I'm kind of excited to see. And then other people might be like, I've never heard of this fucking movie. It's just, but that's the TerraVision way. We're so used to, like, it's like kind of funny because we do conventions and stuff, and you'll have these people come up, and I'm not making fun of anybody. But it is kind of like, it happens a lot. You'll have these guys with like a Freddy mask or like a Jason mask and a Freddy glove, and they'll have like, Chucky overalls on, and they'll look at your table, and they're like angry. They're like, I've never heard of any of these movies. I'm like, well, then that's a good thing, because maybe we could turn you on to some weird shit,
Right.
But that's my point, that people just rewatch the same thing over and over and really don't branch out. And streaming has helped that, but we're not a streaming company, I hate it. I hate streaming. I stream all the time, but like, it just takes, when you're putting together a package of something and you're submitting it to an authoring for a disc, and we've uploaded like our own stuff to like our aggregator for like Tubi and everything, and they're like, oh, it's a gigabyte, and I'm like, you're gonna take our wonderful picture of like our 400 gigabyte
and compress it,
and you're just gonna compress it to this little box. I was like, it's insulting, is what it is. All the work is diminished. Like, people will be happy because it's HD, but I'm like, that I watched some of these, and I'm like, that's not how the movie's supposed to look. Like, it looks good. It just doesn't look good. I mean, it looks good probably for a normal person.
Yeah,
but not normal. I'm like watching it, and I'm like, oh my god, I'll never forget. Like, I was watching. I watched Chowchilla, which was one of my favorite documentaries of this year. I love Paul Solet. I think he's like one of the best filmmakers out there. He has this movie called Tread. That's a documentary that I'll talk about in a second. But he has this new doc called Chowchilla. It's a really kind of chilling documentary about this incident that happened, I think, in the 80s, with a school bus of kids that was hijacked, and all these kids were kidnapped. And I'm watching on HBO Max, which is the premiere. And like, I'm watching, and like, one of the people are talking, but I can only see like half of their face. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, a director wouldn't do that. And then like in the corner, I see like the name pop up of like, where they're at, and half of the text is missing. And I'm like, is this fucking cropped?
Oh,
it's like, you got to be kidding me. And then I look, and I'm like, this is a known thing for HBO Max. And I was hanging out with my mom one day, and I got her hooked on like the fucking Dark Knight movies. So like, Dark Knight is, we're at her place or whatever, and I'm like, let's watch this. So I put it on, and immediately I can tell like it's cropped. And I'm like, you fucking cropped the Dark Knight?
that's crazy.
Like, it's nuts. Christopher Nolan would fucking sue your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god. But anyways, Paul Solet has this movie called Tread. Do you know the true story about this movie, about a dude with a bulldozer that tried to kill his entire town?
Oh, it was a town, right? He like,
yeah.
Was that it was in Colorado too, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, he built this fortified bulldozer over a period of like a year or two, and he, like, the guy wasn't a bad guy, but he was being forced from his property because they wanted to like build this like water oil line or whatever. And they were making his life a living hell, to where he couldn't get permits. The city was fighting against him because they wanted him to move. And finally, they put him to his breaking point, and he built this fortified bulldozer with guns inside, and he started mowing down the businesses that fucked him over.
Yeah.
And luckily, no one died. Well, the guy that drove the bulldozer did, because I think he killed himself inside, which is terrible. but he literally started bulldozing the town and like shooting fucking machine guns out the side. One of the best documentaries I've ever seen. But Paul Solet is like literally one of the best like documentary directors of all time. But yeah, watch Tread and Chowchilla, both like amazing documentaries.
I think I saw the trailer for Tread. I don't think I've seen it, but I think I saw the trailer, and
Yeah.
because I very specifically remember thinking, "What the hell?" But
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it happened. Oh man, what is it? So it happened the day after like a big thing in the U.S. And I can't remember what it was. It was like some tragedy. It wasn't like 9/11 or anything because that was way too early.
It was. I pulled up just a quick little synopsis on it, and it was on June 4th, 2004. So whatever might have happened around that.
June 4th, 2004.
Was that going into Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was something with Bush. Maybe it was the day they declared war or something. I don't know. But anyways, something happened like in the nation where this whole story kind of just got like no one it didn't get any press because there was other major shit happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tread's a great documentary, and he's really good at like recreating stuff and making you feel like it's real. I mean, they have a ton of real footage of the actual event because they caught it like on the news cam choppers and stuff like that. But his recreations are like fucking chilling. They're so good.
Yeah. I'm gonna go watch it when we get done here. So
yeah, it's fucking rad as shit. So
before we let you go, I want to mention another thing TerraVision does that I love, and that's putting soundtracks out on cassette tape.
Yeah, no, it's a very popular cassette tapes are a lucrative part of our business.
I mean, but they're gorgeous too. Like I love them. I love I have a few of them, and I just appreciate that is a thing because nobody else really does that.
And then you said this premieres on Friday, right?
Yeah, this episode will come out this Friday.
We have a drop on Friday.
Oh.
So yeah, pay attention to that because we'll have a cassette that day.
I mean, because it's not just movies that y'all do. You've done like Fire in the Sky, Chud 2, things.
Chud 2, dude. Chud 2 might be a weird, dumb movie, but Chud 2 has one of the best soundtracks of all fucking time.
I've never seen it. I've only seen Chud.
Yeah, it's not. I don't really care for Chud 2 as a movie, even though like the name of the town is actually the town I grew up in, Winter Haven. But like the movie's not very good, but that soundtrack is fucking balls to the wall aces as shit.
Awesome.
You did People Under the Stairs,
so fucking good.
Which is one of my favorite movies.
What is that?
People Under the Stairs.
Yeah, that and that's the cool thing about Ryan is he's got a really good ear for that stuff. Because there's like certain soundtracks that I really really enjoy, but there's some stuff that Ryan's obsessed with also putting stuff out on mediums that it never got a release. So like cassette tapes, because like we did the first Pet Sematary cassette tape, but we didn't do the vinyl because it was already on vinyl. But we did Pet Sematary 2 cassette and the record. Which Pet Sematary 2, again, probably like one of the best horror soundtracks and like scores of all time, because Tracy Lords was heavily involved on the vocals on that soundtrack. And it's really, really good. And Pet Sematary 2, Pet Sematary. I don't like Pet Sematary. I know that's like probably bad to say. I like the idea of Zelda, but I just never really got into Pet Sematary. I love Pet Sematary 2 because I fucking love Clancy Brown, and he plays the best villain ever in the world in that movie. So
I haven't seen 2 since I was a teenager. Probably I need to go watch it because
it's one of those movies I think people dislike because they watched it at a young age and they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is Pet Cemetery." But when you realize that fuck Pet Cemetery, like this is something they just want to do on their own and kind of go ape shit with it, it's so fucking good. And it's dark, it's fucked up. Like, I mean, I know like Gage dying in the first one is like, I just laugh. It's like that. No,
See,
no!
I didn't used to like Pet Cemetery like that. I like parts of it, but the older I've gotten and the more I've watched it, I actually really like Pet Cemetery. But for lots of years, I didn't really care for it.
Yeah,
Except I love Fred
Sleepwalkers
Gwynn.
guy. I fucking love Sleepwalkers, and that was the movie that people disliked for a long time.
Sleepwalkers is so weird.
I love Sleepwalkers. That's a good movie.
Oh my god, I love that whole opening dancing at the Arrow Theater, and Madchen is like doing that little dance and cleaning up the theater, and I mean, yeah, it's weird with the incestual stuff,
Yeah.
but it kind of fits, kind of like it doesn't. It's it's one of those movies that. It's a weird thing that's going on, but it doesn't feel weird when you're watching it. Kind of like People Under the Stairs, like they're brother and sister, but you never really, and they're probably assaulting that child.
Yeah,
it's very much implied because like when I mean they don't have names, it just goes by Daddy. But when he's up there in his like gimp outfit and she's like hiding behind the chimney and he like grabs his like crotch. When he's looking for her, that's fucking nasty, dude.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you break down People Under the Stairs, it's a pretty fucked up movie.
Oh, it's a fucked up movie.
Absolutely.
There's some horrific shit happening behind the scenes. We just don't see it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with Sleepwalkers, but those two are kind of into it. So that's fine. I mean, the little girl definitely doesn't want to be part of that, but Sleepwalkers, he's cool with chilling with his mom.
Well, Brad, I really appreciate you coming on. We could talk for 2 more hours, but my computer says otherwise because I don't have it plugged in. And but we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Where can everybody find TerraVision and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hide on any social media, so you can just search Brad Henderson. You'll find me on Letterboxd, Twitter. I'm pretty, out. I see Facebook. I mean, that's how Jeff got a hold of me. So yeah, I'm on there. I'm on Reddit, Discord, and then anytime I mean, you'll definitely find TerraVision because I only talk about movies and TerraVision. Sometimes politics, but whatever. So, but yeah, no, I don't hide on anything. I use my full name and my dumb picture that I have on so I never change it.
Jeff does that too. He uses his dumb picture too.
I mean, it's like a 10-year-old picture, probably even longer. I just never change it because I don't take selfies like I haven't ever like in my life. Oh. And that was a picture someone took of me, and I was just like, I'm just gonna use that for everything.
That's the way to do it. I think I just threw up a picture of Mulder from X-Files, and I was like, "That's good. That's good." I don't know who I am from that. So.
Yeah, it's like I've my wife is always like, "Take a picture." I'm like, I don't take selfies. Like I feel it's weird.
I do too. I've always felt that. Like,
I'm not taking pictures of myself.
I'm fine with them, but I always smile weird. Like I'm like. And like my face becomes real like fatter than it already is.
I'm just not a photogenic person, so it's like hard for me to like stomach taking a photo of myself. I wish I don't actually wish I could because I just still wouldn't post anything. I just rather talk about movies. So
that's the way to go. That's the way.
Well, we'd love to have you on again, and we're big fans of TerraVision. I have several copies of movies you put out, and then I need to go. I'm going to go do that sequel to WNUF because I love the first one. So,
no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the support, and yeah, I appreciate it. Ask me anytime.
All right.
Man, thank you.
Until next time, Jeff. What should they do?
They should keep it bloody
because somebody has to.